So really what we've seen over the last 12 months has been an increase in the Islamic State's propaganda campaign to really focus on Southeast Asia as a region. And this has involved recognizing pledges of allegiance from militant groups in places like the southern Philippines. It has involved putting more resources into reaching sympathizers and supporters in that region, as well as calling for attacks in Southeast Asia. Now, what we've also seen is militant groups responding to this attention in kind. Groups such as the Abu Sayyaf group in the southern Philippines have really intensified their violence over the last 12 months. For instance, we've seen the execution of the first Western hostages in 14 years, when the two Canadian hostages, John Ridsdale and Robert Hall, were executed in April and May of this year. And what's more, the filming of those executions began to really show some of the same types of motives that Islamic State's videos and propaganda have shown in the past, such as the use of orange Guantanamo Bay style jumpsuits, as well as the Islamic State flag hung in the background. In addition to claiming several attacks since the beginning of 2016 and producing this type of propaganda content, really the kind of most important indication of a shift in the Islamic State's approach to Southeast Asia came in June 2016 with a video titled "A Solid Structure," where the Islamic State established what's called a Majlis al-Shura, or a consultative council in the southern Philippines. And this is really a kind of military organ within the Islamic State that's considered a kind of precursor to establishing a formal governance structure in Southeast Asia, and really the kind of initial step to formally expand influence in the region in a very concrete way. So as the Islamic State comes under pressure in Iraq and Syria, one of the ways that it is able to project its influence globally is through the establishment of provinces or wilayas around the world, including in Southeast Asia. Now, one of the things that, if this province declaration happens, one of the things that might start then happening in the run-up to such a declaration, as well as after it, is the transit of foreign fighters of Southeast Asian origin from Iraq and Syria back into their home countries to really take over some of those governance roles that I mentioned earlier, and try to facilitate training, to facilitate recruitment efforts in the region, as well as plan attacks. Now, the timing of a province declaration in Southeast Asia is uncertain and very difficult to predict, but what we are really looking at is any kind of major shift in the Islamic State's fortunes in Iraq and Syria. For instance, the potential loss of Mosul in Iraq or Raqqa in Syria, being events that might prompt it to seek influence elsewhere and to really show that it still has this type of global influence and power. What's really important to stress is that actually at this point the militant capabilities in Southeast Asia haven't really changed. So really there's no signs of additional money flowing in or any kind of operational improvements in capabilities. So really in that sense things are continuing as business as usual. What has changed, however, is that the Islamic State has increasingly called for attacks in Southeast Asia and has, since the start of 2016, claimed a number of attacks, including the Jakarta attacks in Indonesia, as well as attacks in a nightclub in Malaysia's Puchong, as well as a suicide attack in Indonesia's Solo. So really what we're likely to also start seeing is an increasing reliance on these types of lone actor attacks and using propaganda to really reach supporters and sympathizers of the group in these areas who might not have an organizational affiliation with the group, but who are willing to carry out attacks in Southeast Asia, very much in the same way that we've seen lone actors carry out attacks in Europe over the summer of 2016 without any kind of formal affiliation with the group necessarily. Now, law enforcement agencies across Southeast Asia are very likely to be monitoring the situation closely and looking for any kind of indicators that might signal a change to this threat environment. One of these signals will be the potential return of these more battle-hardened foreign fighters from Iraq and Syria. And indeed, at IHS Janes, we're also going to be trying to figure out where that kind of shift comes where the local militant groups begin to improve their capabilities and change the threat environment in Southeast Asia.